Hi, I'm Bob. I'm someone's doctor, and because statistically, most of you watching this are as dumb as my patients, I'm going to guess you do a lot of the same stuff. So as a favor to all your doctors, I'd like to point out a few things. For every hour a doctor spends actually seeing patients, we've got to spend around 2 hours charting, documenting everything we did for insurance companies and the government. It's roughly as rewarding as making passionate love to a pile of sawdust. And when we actually do get to see patients, a lot of them are this guy. Americans consume roughly 80% of the global opiate supply. I'm not exaggerating for comedic effect. We are taking all the drugs, and most of us don't need them. So a big part of my job is saying no to people with back pain. Now, it can be hard to tell when someone's lying about pain.
My back.
And back pain is a real nightmare.
Please, doc, just some drugs.
But I've heard way too many 40-year-old men say, I'm allergic to Motrin and Tylenol. I can only take Percocet. Once I turned a patient down for painkillers on the grounds that not a damn thing was wrong with her. She started yelling to the whole ER that she and her kids were going to wind up sleeping on the street because I wouldn't hand her a prescription. It turns out she'd been selling her pills. She needed them for rent money. You can't get angry as a doctor. You've got to stay professional, move on to the next patient. And if you aren't careful, that can kind of break you. See, the most important thing you should know about your doctor is that he might be living a life of unspeakable despair. So, there's a particularly horrible brain tumor called a pontine glioma. It grows in the brainstem, the part of your brain that knows how to keep your body alive, and it tends to strike children. Initially, the child has minor symptoms, double vision, trouble swallowing, maybe some weakness. Then the tumor mercilessly and inexorably kills them, and there's not a good thing I, or anyone else, can do about it. And after dealing with that, I have to go to my adult spine clinic and immediately deal with the guy with a nearly invisible disc herniation who's demanding narcotics and a disability statement.
I just need some pills, doc.
Just a couple, just a pill or two.
And then I go home and chart for several hours until I get to sleep.
Hey, can I have some pills, please? I just have all these.
You got some of that morphine?
It would actually be great if the main side effect of all this frustration and stress was whimsical cartoon violence. Unfortunately, it's lots of suicide. Male physicians are 3 times as likely to kill themselves as the general population. Female physicians are 4 to 5 times as likely to commit suicide. Every year, the US loses the equivalent of 1 full medical school graduating class to suicide. All this as we're looking at a projected shortfall of 90,000 doctors by 2025. Only 3.9% of medical school students are depressed, but 1 year after they start their internship and actually work as a doctor, that number jumps to 25.7%. And you can all do a little bit to help with this crisis. Don't go to the doctor when you want to get high.
This is Ed. He was a daily heroin user for over a year before he got clean. And he's here to explain some of the ways everyone gets heroin addiction wrong.
It's gonna be fun. Movies portray heroin addiction as happening instantly. You jab that needle into your arm and boom, you're a skinny bass player in a grunge band. I've literally never met anyone who was introduced to heroin with a needle. Most start by popping or smoking pills. And when you first start using opioids, you can use daily for weeks with no withdrawal effects whatsoever. I used to get totally wasted with my girlfriend Sally every night and woke up every morning clear as a bell. So it was super easy to think,
hey, why not use again?
It was like drinking without a hangover. Turns out the really bad part of heroin isn't the physical dependency, it's the addiction. There's a difference. People act like addictive drugs are just needles full of addiction gremlins. But I didn't use heroin because of heroin. I used it because I had serious problems in my life that I wasn't addressing. The gremlins were inside me all along. Heroin helped me ignore them, which made quitting harder because I had to face not only withdrawal, but all the crap I'd been trying to avoid in the first place.
I can't take it!
This scene from Requiem for a Dream is pretty melodramatic. When this happened to my girlfriend, we just drained her abscess with a hot compress and disinfected razor blade. Blackened limb rot was so commonplace it was practically boring. The real danger is buying stronger heroin than you're used to by accident. Since there's no FDA for illegal street drugs, heroin potency is less closely monitored than, say, orange juice pulp. It's pretty easy to get some fire dope by accident. That's the equivalent of ordering a latte, but when you go to take a sip, you find out it's made of shotgun blast.
Ugh, casuals.
Some people think the danger of heroin is that you might inject some that's been cut with Drano or something. No. The danger of heroin is accidentally injecting heroin that's too damn good. So I guess it's more like ordering a latte and accidentally getting a mocha latte. And then... This is getting dark. Let's talk about my penis for a second. Eventually I got arrested because while heroin made it hard for me to keep a job, it created a lot of opportunities for petty theft. And since I couldn't get any horse in jail, I quickly discovered that one of the side effects of heroin withdrawal is uncontrollable orgasms. And not the good kind, the bad kind of orgasm. Yes, those exist. Since heroin numbs your body, getting clean involves being hypersensitive, so I was climaxing painfully whenever anything came into contact with my junk. And prison is just full of stuff you don't want to become. I'm clean now, and my dick works again. Withdrawal only lasts 3 weeks, the physical symptoms anyway. After those subside, only 2 things remain. The first is post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which means depression, insomnia, restlessness, overwhelming guilt, and in my case, vivid nightmares. In one, I have a bag of dope in my hand and I'm looking for a place to shoot up, but every time I find one, I get interrupted. The dream always ends with a needle in my arm, and just before I push off, I wake up. But the worst part is the problems that made me turn to heroin in the first place. They're still here. And they actually got worse while I was high because instead of working on... My point is that if I were going to give a review of heroin, it would be negative.